Welcome. Hi. Welcome to the Rainbow Crossing, our first ever podcast. I am Julio Guzman, and you are?
Hi, Julio. I'm Daniel.
Hi, Daniel. Nice to see you at our lovely place.
Yeah. It almost feels like home here.
It is home.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Mhm.
that makes me feel a little less anxious, nervous about this.
I
That
know.
we're actually have this.
I pulled up comfy straight from my room. You got a little suit on for the first podcast, which by all means, just your age.
You know, I do think it speaks to our generational
Definitely.
differences. I mean,
And
you
this isn't far off from what you normally wear anyway.
yeah, as I'm laying around the house
Yeah,
relaxing,
definitely.
this is my go-to. Yeah. No, I mean this is, you and I have a lot of things in common, but obviously there's a couple of years age difference between us.
Yes.
So, we do have some differences.
Which is what this podcast is basically about, you know?
Yeah.
You are Gen X and I
Am
am
I?
no boomer.
That's not the direction I was going in.
Oh, you were
No,
going down.
down.
Okay.
No, but no, I am Gen X and you
I
are
am Gen Z.
Gen Z.
But we somehow like meet in the middle with the millennial.
Yeah, you're an old soul, and I obviously am a very young
You keep
spirit.
me young. Honestly, it's probably what you have here in the house. It's just like, you know how like the witches from Hocus Pocus?
Oh yeah,
That's
yeah.
literally what you're doing. And I feel like
That's
my soul's leaving my body every time.
it's that and my pact with the devil. Those two things
Oh.
in conjunction
So
have
you're
kept
the
me.
reason I've been saging the house.
Yeah, but this does give us I think a unique opportunity to approach some gay topics from two pretty different perspectives
Definitely.
and try to find a way to meet in the middle.
As we should.
As we should. Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of meeting, I think it's important we talk about who we are in
How
relation
us
to each
two
other.
different people cross paths.
Yeah, because
A lot of people with something.
the gays love to talk. I mean, everybody loves to make assumptions
Sure.
and to gossip, but I feel like the gays have more time on their hands to do this.
Exactly.
And I know I distinctly remember like before you even moved in and the first conversation, like potential roommate conversation that we had, because we
I
are
remember.
just roommates.
Yes.
I said, this is going to happen. And if it's going to be a problem with you, we should figure it out now. But people are going to assume that there is something more to us than roommates. And I don't know if it's people like projecting or people just wanting something exciting to be going on.
I have no idea, but I wish you were giving me money. I wish this was a circumstance where I was getting paid to just live and
Well, I
not-
mean, you would be needed to do some things if I was going to give you money. So no money has been exchanged. No
Facts,
services
facts,
have been
facts.
exchanged.
It's been very
The in-
family oriented.
Very,
Really though.
very. And I think this month I think it was June of 2019
Oh my god.
that we became roommates. So I think
Yes.
it's been 5 years actually.
5. Yeah. I did not. So we actually met at a party
Right. A pool party.
longer than 5 years. It was probably like
It was
7 years ago.
probably 17 or 18.
I think it was like 2018. I
Maybe,
believe.
yeah,
2018 or 19 summer around there. I remember going to a pool party with my friend who was
Yes.
seeing one of your mutual friends
Yeah.
at the.
I'm not blind. You're an attractive guy. I'm not attracted to you, but I've always thought you were an attractive guy. But when I saw you at the pool party, and of course, there's this cute guy. But you were really young, so that was like number one red flag. But the other reason was that I had um a friendship relationship with your friend who you would come with, because not only had he been seeing one of my friends, but that kind of had fizzled out, and that friend was trying to connect me with your friend.
Which I did not know any of this
Yeah.
at the time that it was happening. I
Yeah.
was just there for the pool
Right.
and a good time.
With your friend is also young, and this mutual friend who was trying to connect us was so insistent on it, and I was just like, okay, let's just go out to dinner to appease him, and no expectations, no desire for anything at all. Let's just see what happens. And we went to dinner. We had a nice conversation. but there was such a huge age difference. It was very clear that this was not going to go anywhere beyond just a really casual friendship at absolute most.
And it turned out the way it needed to be.
Boy, did it. Yes.
That was not gonna work.
No, but that definitely it helped me put you in a friendship box right out of the
Yes,
gate.
for sure. And even then at that point, like I just was networking at that point and just met
Yeah.
you. We exchanged Instagrams, and then 2 years later, I was wanting to move to Austin, posted that I was looking for a roommate, and you responded to my DM that you
Yeah.
had an extra room.
Actually, as you know, I had 2 extra rooms at
2
the
extra
time,
rooms,
but
yes.
they were both empty. Like, one was literally empty. There was no furniture. There was nothing in that room at all, but one was furnished and ready to go. And at that time, I was traveling a lot for the job that I was at, and I really just I wanted somebody to be home and, watch out for things, and it worked out really well because, you were traveling a lot at that time as well. So it really worked out when you were there, I wasn't, and when I was there, you weren't.
Yeah.
So, we were 2 ships passing in the night. We didn't see a lot of each other,
It
but
was interesting our first time like meeting in person after that first interaction, like seeing if we were potential roommates. You were like, "Oh, come over, let's have a conversation,
yeah,
see how things will go." And we meshed. We had a lot of similar
yeah.
interests, and then you were like, you honestly gave me a 6 month period. You were like, "I'm giving you 6 months to see if we're potential roommates, and if in these 6 months we don't work out, then I'll still let you finish out those 6 months to find another place." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Perfect! Like that's
I'm
so
s
nice of you,
I'm
you know?
such a nice person.
That is a very
Like,
nice thing to do."
that's I am an overly generous person at times. Not that that was a bad thing,
No,
because obviously in our situation, here we
I
are
mean we're still
5
here
years
5 years
later, so
strong.
it clearly worked out. It is funny that you say we had a lot in common because we did, and we do more so now than we
Definitely,
did. But when you moved in, you were 20 years old,
I was 20.
and I was not 20 years old. I was not 30.
Mm-mm.
I was not 40.
Nope.
I was I was 44 at the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's why people assume things.
Right.
That's why they
Right, right,
assume
right.
things.
Of course, because a 44-year-old gay man and a 20-year-old gay man cannot just be friends or
But
roommates.
that's what this really is, and that's what makes it even
It
more special and so
absolutely.
weird. Honestly, in a way, it's like you actually, I take that back because if you think about it, this is a very common thing in gay culture for like people to find their own community and finally like live with people that can honestly uplift them and make a better path for themselves, you
Sure.
know?
I think I know that we as a gay community, we oftentimes don't have a blood family that supports us, that lifts us up, that can act as mentors to us. So, as a lot of people in the gay community know, we have to seek out a chosen family. I think it works both ways because, you didn't have a father for a lot of
The
your,
universe will provide
you
the
know,
specific blessings you need in your life to
I
like form those
yeah,
missing things that you missed in the
right,
past to help you get to where you're going in the
right.
future.
And I love my sister dearly, but I always wanted a brother growing up. And I was in a long relationship prior to meeting you, that lasted for over a decade. And we had often talked about adopting kids, having kids in some form or fashion. And I love kids. Maybe we're on the same brain wavelength. I don't know what it is, but I just love kids so much. And so, I wanted to have a kid. I'm kind of at that point, and I know some people say I'm not past the point of having kids, but I feel like I am past the point of having kids. But I got to skip the good stuff because I feel
I
like in a lot of ways we're roommates, we're friends,
definitely
we're brothers, but a lot of times there's a father-son
there is
dynamic here
there
as
is
well.
as much as I hate to admit it, no one has raised me and I've raised myself
You
besides
have,
my mom and
of
my
course.
sisters. I've been raised by a lot of feminine energy.
Yes.
And I've never had a father in my life to be present
Yeah.
in serious moments. And I feel like you've been in my life for a lot of serious, important moments. And that has been a very important part to me. And you are a father figure in a way. But don't ever tell me what to do.
Well, I already know better than that. I carefully dance around things
I
when
know.
I'm in
I
need
know
of
when you
something.
subliminally want me to do something.
Hmm?
You're like, so like that yard back there is looking pretty, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it. I'll cut the yard. Jeez, but
Wow,
you did cut the yard last time,
I
so
did.
thank you.
I did. Hmm.
Tight.
But, we have a complex relationship
Yes.
because it has a lot of facets to it. But I think that those are the best relationships to have, whether it's a friendship, a romantic relationship, whatever it is. When you have all of these different things to offer each other, like those are the best
Mm,
relationships. And, I know I've been blessed with having a lot of those kind of gay relationships in my life. And as someone my age, I didn't always have the opportunity to have people older than me because I grew up in a time when, a lot of my gay elders were dying from HIV. So, this is really a blessing. And I think for both of us, it's been a wonderful opportunity. And this is just a great way to expand on the relationship that we're already having because
yeah,
we have these conversations in our living room
nonstop.
nonstop.
Sometimes we can get a little heated in discussion because we're both very
Yeah.
passionate people
We
trying
are.
to figure out who's right at times. But
Yeah.
we do find a good middle ground to just
Yeah,
let things be. And
absolutely. After that big blow up during the pandemic,
oh god, our first
of
ever fight. Our first of very little fight. Very
yeah,
few fights is what
but
that is.
the pandemic really changed our relationship as well because
Yes.
all of a sudden neither of us were traveling anymore,
And then
and
you're
we
stuck with me.
we hunkered down,
Mhm.
and I feel like a lot of gay people were not at home, chilling for a while. They couldn't resist getting out, hanging out with
You
friends.
can't control the AIDS
We
as much
no,
as people would like to.
no, no. To each their own.
Party.
Literally. But we for 2 months, like
Yeah.
we left the house to go for runs and stuff like that, but we ordered groceries in. I was fortunate enough to still be working remotely at home,
Yeah, I got laid off.
but you were, yeah,
Laid
for
off, no work for a while. That was not the vibe.
right.
But I will say I did enjoy being bunkered a little bit, a little time to rest. I've been working since 15. I know that's not too much time,
No.
but it was nice to have a little break from
Yeah.
the world to
Yeah.
just relax, sleep.
And it really solidified our dynamic because I would work during the day as I normally would, but just at home.
Mhm.
And you would like do a lot of the
Yeah,
cooking,
cooking, and
and
we would work out together.
then you would arrange the workouts. You'd have everything prepped for workouts. We watched quite a few, as many people did, Netflix shows, which was the
Binge
source of
most
of
of our
of our
indifferences.
one big argument. I feel like Elite, the show on Netflix, Elite, the Spanish teen high school murder
Season 1 through 3,
drama.
great.
I feel like it should be bringing the gays together because of the very attractive
Yes.
people that are on the
Yes.
show. But for one episode or two, it drove us apart.
So apart. I was
Yeah.
so mad. I couldn't even be in the same room. I don't even remember what the situation was, but there was a couple and one of them
The
had
gay couple.
the gay couple, and they specifically had a problem with something, and I thought one of the other guys was right, and Daniel had the opposite opinion,
Yeah.
and I'm like, "No, you're completely wrong. Like the other guy, it's definitely the other guy's fault, and we could just not meet in the middle."
Yeah. That's when pandemic insanity set in,
And I ran upstairs,
yeah.
and I didn't want to talk to you for a good while, and you were like, "Come back downstairs. Let's fix this." I was like, "I'm gonna blow up on you if I walk back downstairs, so I cannot."
I think I let you have your moment.
Yes, yes.
But at any rate, that was maybe the first moment we really understood really how similar we actually are. We had
Yes.
different viewpoints of this situation, but we are both very stubborn.
Mhm.
And we need a little time to
Fluff.
cool off. Yeah.
Simmer down.
Yeah. It's been a good ride. That's one of very, very few
Exactly.
circumstances. So,
But going on with this podcast,
yeah,
this is our first podcast. It's
it
also
is.
Pride Month, so happy Pride to everyone who celebrates and who don't.
Yeah, especially if you don't celebrate. Happy
Exactly.
Pride.
Get with it.
Yeah.
Happy Pride. We love you. Love us back.
I don't know that that's gonna happen, but we'll keep celebrating Pride, and in honor of Pride and in honor of our first podcast, I think we should talk about our gay firsts. So
Totally
some
agree.
of our first gay experiences. One question that comes to mind immediately is like, when did you realize what gay was?
No, when I first realized what gay was, I think I think I was around gay queerness at a very young age, but I didn't realize that it was something that it was frowned upon
Mm.
until I was more aware subconsciously, I guess. Because growing up, when I was like around 4 or 5, I remember my oldest sister, she did have a couple gay friends, and they were around her, and they seemed like great guys. She was always happy around them, and I did notice a little difference. They were definitely more of the girls than they were the guys, and I knew there was people would look at them slightly different, and obviously being around a bunch of women in my life, they were comfortable around them. So to me, all of that was normal. It wasn't until I started resonating with the femininity that I had as well a little bit more. Before even then being a part of my life, I was already like wearing my sister's heels and like
Mm.
putting a towel on my hair like I'm some girl or something, a little weird. But I was just representing my sisters. It was a good time. They would laugh at me, whatever. But I do remember going to church at like the age of 6 or 7, and then they would reference certain terms of gay people was not resonating with me, and everything that I felt like I knew that I had feelings for boys because at that age I subconsciously had a crush on a kid in my grade, but I was like in kindergarten maybe. I'm
Yeah.
not sure, but I knew that I liked my friend more than I liked more of the girls. And I didn't know if that was a normal thing or not. Never really thought about it. Those were just my feelings until when I'm going to church and I hear a pastor talking about, well, boys shouldn't be liking boys or girls shouldn't be liking girls. Then I more so kept to myself that, okay, maybe I shouldn't talk about, not that I was talking about it, because I'm very much someone from a young age and still now to this day who is just very present and just does things until I actually have a grasp of what I am thinking. Then I will let it out into existence.
Yeah. This was in the early 2000s.
Yes,
Yeah.
probably like
Yeah.
2001, 2002.
Yeah.
Oh, babe.
So when I was around that age that you were at that time, of course, it was the 80s, and I had a very different experience because it's amazing what just even a 20-year gap will has done for the gay community, and another 20 years from then till now. Obviously, we're still working on a lot of things, but so much about the gay community is just normally accepted these days. Gay marriage is understood to be something that the majority of our country supports. But in the 80s, that's when the AIDS crisis was hitting, and people didn't even really know what was going on. And of course, I didn't understand what gay was. I was young. I was 8 or 9 or so. But I remember there was a news broadcast, a segment on one of the news stories, and it was talking about that gay men were coming down with this thing that was just killing them. That didn't resonate too much with me, but what did, because you don't, when you're 8, 9, you don't really understand death, and
Not at
especially
all.
mass death.
And even then, sexuality, it's more like I'm just like, I have these feelings, like these love feelings for these warm feelings towards the specific
Right,
same.
right, right. You're not a sexual being at 8 or 9
Exactly.
years old, for sure. But what I do remember about that moment was my dad saw that, and he said something along the lines of, well, they're getting what they deserve. I was also raised very religiously and in a very Christian household. And I always thought that my parents were just the kindest, most generous, loving, accept everyone.
As Christians think that they do.
Right. But my parents are the kind of people, like, if someone came up to my mom and was like, "Oh, oh, that's such a great jacket you have on. I sure wish I had." My mom would take it off and give it to him. That's the kind of
Yeah.
person that she
Yeah.
is. I know your mom is a very generous person as
Definitely.
well. And they our families exude a lot of Christian qualities, but there are certainly, at least at times, that they don't embody everything.
Correct.
It's hard as a child that young to recognize that your parents are not perfect. They are not Christ-like in every single way. And it was a very eye-opening and sad experience for me. Of course, I didn't know I was gay at that point, but I knew that what he was expressing was wrong, but also it just made me feel really sad inside. Along those lines, when did you realize that you were first gay?
Well, the first time I ever realized that I was fully aware that I am attracted to boys was definitely I was probably around like 8 or 9 where I fully was like, okay, I am different. Like, things that I feel are real and they're not fake. It was when I saw the Batman and Robin movie, I think it was.
Okay.
The one with George Clooney as Batman,
Mm-hmm.
but specifically Robin. Mm,
Chris O'Donnell.
I don't know. I think
Yeah.
possibly. Sure. He kissed Poison Ivy at one point, and I was not looking at Poison Ivy. I'll say that much.
You probably weren't even born when the movie came out, so you watched it
I
on
watched it on like
cable or
or
something.
VHS,
Yeah.
something. I'm not sure.
But I do remember when it first came out because Chris O'Donnell, I think he's a little older than me. I think he's probably early 50s at this point.
Okay.
I think every gay, who saw the movie just thought, oh, like he's so handsome, just a beautiful, beautiful guy.
Very beautiful man.
I remember seeing all the promos for it in advance and being very excited to go see him as part of this movie, and was really disappointed in that he was never shirtless in the entire movie. And I was like, "You're wasting such a good opportunity."
I mean, the bodysuit was good enough.
Well,
He didn't need to be shirtless. You could see if
I
I'm sure
s-
that was just the bodysuit giving him the detail, but imagine.
yeah. Now, believe me, we were all
Oh,
imagining.
okay,
We
gotcha.
were all imagining. Well,
What about you?
for me, the first time I realized I was gay, I like to think that I'm a pretty self-aware person, but every once in a while, someone will say something that will just trigger a realization inside of me. And this was one of those moments. And granted, I was only 12 years old, but I was going home on the school bus, got on the school bus, sat down next to this guy who I don't think he was in any of my classes, but he kind of kept to himself and he wasn't rambunctious like a lot of the other boys. I wasn't either. And I was like, okay, this feels like a good match for me. So I'll just sit down next to him. And he asked me, as we were pulling out of the school and heading home, do you ever want to see a girl naked, a woman naked? And, I gave my honest response, which was no. No, of course not.
You're like, me?
Yeah. Then he asked the kicker, which was, do you ever want to see a man naked? And, in retrospect, I'm sure this kid he was either gay or he thought I was gay and was fishing for something. But my response was no, also. And in that moment, though, like I don't know if you can have a panic attack as a 12-year-old, but in that moment, I had at least the beginnings of a panic attack because I realized I do want to see a man naked, and that means I'm gay. And in that moment, I was like, I am not going to let this define me, because I'm still going to marry a woman and I'm going to have a normal life. And I made a promise to myself that I was never going to tell anybody about that ever, that I was gay, even my wife, which is just, it's crazy and it's sad to think we were in the 80s kind of conditioned
Yeah.
to think that way. And as I said earlier with the story about my father and the comments about HIV AIDS situation, how else was I supposed to respond to that? I lived in a small town, the deep South, Bible Belt, lived in a super conservative religious home. How else was I supposed to respond in that moment? Thankfully, that didn't define me for well, it defined me for another decade or so, but I didn't let it hold me back for too much longer.
Well, when when did you have your like first gay interaction? From then,
Uh,
was it like years, years, years
yeah,
into
yeah,
it?
it was a decade literally passed by, And, I spent a lot of nights praying to take the gay away, as I'm sure a lot of religious kids did. And it was the dawn of the internet that really changed things for a lot of people. And it allowed people like myself who were very closeted, who were fearful of coming out, to find a community. This was, late 90s, of course, so there were no cell phones, so there were no apps, there was no Grinder, or I educated you on Scruff the other day,
You did.
which I don't know how you haven't been on Scruff so far.
No, but what you were saying sounds like my kind of man, but I'm still not gonna get on it.
But,
Be a good boy. Keep
um,
going.
yes, so we didn't have any of those things, but what we did have, they had the AOL chat rooms and all that kind of stuff, but for gay men specifically, there was gay.com. Which back then it was just
Simple. Gay.com.
it was very simple.
Very
Just right to
straight.
the point.
Yeah.
It was, it just hosted all these chat rooms. So, you could go to any
Chat rooms. How so? Like, were they just like text boxes where you just like talk back and
yes.
forth? Like,
Yeah.
were they like? Was there? Well, no, I'm assuming there weren't video options. It was
No.
just
There were there
texting.
there was no even I don't, at least at this early iteration, there were no even like photo options. Like you didn't
You're
have
talking to just
a screen
username.
name, a username. Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely. And so you would choose where you want to chat with by location, and it would only have locations of like major cities. There was no chat room specifically for my area, so I just chatted with the closest city to me,
Which was?
which was Tallahassee, Florida, which is not a big city either, but it was the closest big city
Gotcha.
to me. I started chatting with people in there, and it wasn't the best, but it was a start, and it allowed me to be able to connect with people, even just online. And then eventually, I made a few dates through that, and met the person who I spent a decade with, for better or for worse. It was game changing for me, and for, I'm sure, a lot of,
Mhm.
of young and older gay men at
Yeah.
the time. Yeah. How about your first gay interaction?
My first gay interactions were also online, but it was way different timeline. My first gay interaction was more on Instagram with other guys my age in different cities. I was living in a small country town, so there was like no one really around, and everything was always like kind of discreet. Like sometimes these boys would be super gay and you could tell, and then it would be like, oh, I'm just gonna follow them and see what's up.
Yeah.
And that's how most of those friendships started. But some of them were like also in the same boat as me, where it would be two guys just kind of following each other, and then like they would say something where it would be like a little gay, and it's like, well, are you? Or I'm confused. I don't know what it is. That was a nonstop cycle for like 2, 3 years of just talking to people online because living in a small country town, I never left anywhere. So it was just more online interactions. It wasn't until 2016 or 17 where I finally met up with someone from Dallas from also Instagram. And it was actually like my first boyfriend, my first and only boyfriend who I
Right.
dated while I was in high school that a lot of people actually didn't even know about.
Yeah.
And this is kind of me telling them. They're like,
Wow.
yeah, it's a little interesting. I never spoke about anything until I knew exactly what I was feeling. And at that point in life, especially in high school, I was kind of figuring things out by myself. There would be people talking, obviously saying, oh, he's gay. And then they would get upset when I'm like with a girlfriend. And it's like, so pick and choose. Are we mad? Now we're just finding things to be mad about at this point.
Yeah.
And I kind of just kept things to myself. The people that mattered to me found out eventually and stuff. We'll get to those stories later.
Yeah.
But my first gay interaction didn't happen until 2018, and it was with. I remember downloading Grinder once
Okay.
at one point, and I obviously shouldn't have been on it because I was a kid. But it's psycho. The reason I got on it is because there isn't any gay resources, especially at that point. It didn't feel like there were any gay resources to find out what gay is. So like if you go online and you were just like gay, be like Grinder, porn, XYZ, and it's like how is this benefiting me in any way? If
Yeah.
anything, it's just making my mind a little bit curious and things that I shouldn't be thinking about at this age.
It's tough because, Grindr's in pop culture. Like, straight people know
For
what
sure.
Grinder is
For
now.
sure.
And, when we're that age, 16, 17, we got a lot of testosterone going on in our bodies and, things we want things to
Woo.
happen. Should we be doing it? Are most people that age, emotionally, mentally prepared for that kind of stuff? Probably not, but it's not gonna stop people,
No.
abstinence is not is clearly not the answer,
No.
as Texas
And
politicians should know.
in the small towns like that, like sometimes when there's not actual things to do, what are the kids gonna do
Right, right.
besides do things that they're not supposed to?
So you were in high school at that point,
Yeah. Yes, yes,
2018.
yes.
You were talking about some of the high school boys thinking you were gay
Yeah.
but you were hanging out with their girls and, but, there's no one gayer than straight high school boys. No one is gayer than straight high school boys. Like, the straightest of straight guys in my high
Sure,
school
but
would say things and would I remember we were doing a promotion for something and, had videoed it maybe for the yearbook sales or something, and 2 or 3 of the guys, like, extremely popular, like, played sports, very attractive guys, all had girlfriends, and they were doing something and, like, they made out on the video as part of the
what?
promotional thing, and I'm just like, I remember because everybody was like, "Oh, that's so funny.
This
That's
was what,
so."
the 80s?
Early 90s,
Early
early
90s.
90s in high school, like probably 92 or 93.
Okay.
Everyone
Like,
was, everyone was just like so on board with it, and I'm like, but if they identified as gay, if they were out as gay, no one would be
no,
supportive of that. But the
no.
fact that they're straight and doing that, and I'm just like, straight men like the gayest stuff.
I mean,
We talked about
sports are pretty gay.
sports are
And a
so
lot of straight
gay.
men love sport.
Just think about, wrestling and the outfits that wrestlers wear. Superheroes, the skin tight outfits. Baseball players, football players, those skin tight white. You can see their jock straps. It's
I mean, I'm not
it's
complaining.
no, no,
I
no,
love
no.
sports. Go
We're
sports.
it's,
Yay, team.
I absolutely.
But it is super.
It is so gay.
It's drag.
Yeah, yeah.
All of it is drag.
Yeah, absolutely. And I heard someone say this on social media somewhere, TikTok or wherever, that straight white men don't, maybe it's just straight men in general, don't really have an issue with gay stuff. They have an issue with femininity. And so they don't have an issue when two gay guys are super masked and, play the sports or whatever. But when they get dressed in drag, oh, well, you look like a woman, as if a woman can't, be their equal.
Women
So
should be ruling the world, in my opinion. Let's give them the torch. Give them the whole 100 years to
yeah,
see what's up. If men have been in charge for the longest time. Let's give the women a time. Tell me
well,
what to do. I'll do it.
obviously you're right. Men have been in charge all this time, and every single war, world war, big war that's ever broken out, a man was in charge. So let's put a woman in charge and see what happens. Let's put women in charge
Mhm.
and see what happens. I feel like there will be a lot more communication and fostering
World
of
peace.
of
World peace.
let's bring it on. I'm ready to elevate our game here.
They don't want to fight. They want to know what's going on.
Right.
That's what women want to do. They want to know what's going on. Why are we feeling this way?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's get
And
down to the problem.
how can we come
Exactly.
together and resolve
Yeah.
and find common ground?
And get angry when something doesn't go there.
And it's not even that they get angry,
They don't know
because
how to.
because
They don't know how to channel.
right, because there's nothing wrong with anger.
There's nothing.
We feel all of these emotions, and sometimes
You just gotta express it the right way.
sometimes we're shamed for feeling anger or
Mhm.
feeling sadness or these things. Those aren't bad emotions. It's just how do you channel them? How do you react to them? A lot of men decide to just shut all the emotions off, and that makes them stronger. That's not what strength is.
Saying something. It's doing something.
Right.
It's facing something and
Yes, that's the key, is that because facing your emotions means you actually have to like stand up. And for a lot of men, that's too scary. It doesn't work for them. So
saying things. You want to talk about the first person you came out to?
Oh my gosh. Yes. That was a first that like I said, like, I never thought that would come from my story earlier. I had
Right.
said, "I'm not gonna do this." But, you got that truth in you that you gotta get out, like we're
Yeah.
saying, for your own mental and emotional well-being. And I had made this friend who I worked with, when I was, in the latter part of my college years. She and I we do a lot of things together after hours and just became really, really good friends. And I'm sure I would have qualified her as my best friend at that point in my life. And we had driven somewhere to go grab some food or something, and she was driving, and on the way back, it was the evening time, and I just had this inside of me, and it just had to come out. And I thought this was the perfect opportunity because she is driving and she cannot look at me. She has to look at the road. She has to have her hands on the steering wheel. So I can get this out in the dark where she can't really see my face. So I came out to her and I said, "Hey, I want to tell you something. I struggled to get it out." And I said, "I'm gay." And it was the biggest relief think that I've ever had in my life. Telling someone your truth is almost always a relief. And of course, like, I was in tears and she started tearing up because she knew. And she said,
They always know.
yeah, of
They
course she knew.
always
Of
know.
course
The
she knew.
besties, they gonna
Yeah,
know.
yeah. We think we're hiding stuff. No,
No.
no. Especially the best girlfriends.
Yeah.
You might pull it over on a best straight male friend,
Yeah.
but the girlfriends, no, they know.
Yeah.
And she was tearing up and said, "I knew. I was just waiting for you to tell me." So obviously our friendship went to the next level because when you're keeping that something like that from someone, you can never become really truly best of friends if you're holding back your truth. That opened the floodgates. Like, I wasn't immediately going out and, pulling out the rainbow gear and attending all the pride parades and
Yeah.
and letting the world know. But
It
it
was just that
was
small
it was the
sacrifice.
moment that I realized, like, I can't live in that closet. I can't keep things hidden forever. And it was a really important first step. How
Yeah.
about yours?
The first person I came out to was actually my mom when I was 15. What I remember the day was a very hard day. I remember I was angry with my mom a lot for specific. I never felt welcomed a lot in my household,
Mm,
specifically because I'd never had anyone to relate to. I was around girls all the time, and everything that I would hear at church about myself wasn't right. So there was just a bunch of feelings that I was like hiding inside. And like at the end of the day, I knew that I wanted to be the best person that I could be for my family, but everything that I would hear about myself was not good. So I was just always angry all the time. And I remember one night, I don't know what my mom and I were fighting about, but I made her really angry and she ended up crying. And that was one of many times that I made her cry. And at that point I was over it. I was pissed at myself. I was like, why do I keep making the person who I love the most in my life so upset? Like, what is it about me that is making me act out in my life
yeah.
and make everyone around me hate me and not want to be around
There
me
was an anger inside of you,
from being gay? And like that's
but from keeping it in.
from keeping it in
Yeah.
1,000%. And that's the conclusion I came to. I just remember we were driving. I made her cry, and we were on my way to my uncle's house, and she went out, and I stayed in the car, and I just remember just talking to myself and like thinking about like why am I doing this to my mom? Why am I making her so upset? Like, what about me is causing this? And I came to the conclusion. I was like, if I keep this in, I'm gonna stay the same.
Mm.
It might get worse. I might not be happy with myself. Might be more conflicted. But right now, I'm feeling the urge to just tell her so I can maybe see what's up. And at this point, I was more leaning towards bisexual because I did have girls that I enjoyed so much, like as a person growing up that I did want to date.
Sure.
But these were just things that I had for men, and I felt like that was the main source of my anger. So coming out to her, we were driving, and she gets back to me in the car, and she's like, "Why are you crying?" And she starts driving, and I was like, I don't know if I want to talk about it. And then she's like, just tell me. And then I was like, I don't know, mom. Like, this is like, I don't know what I'm feeling. And then she like pulls over, and then she's like, well, I'm not gonna drive until you tell me what's going on. And I just remember looking at her and telling her like, I I like guys. I think I'm bisexual. I know that I like girls, but I do know that I like guys too. and I feel like I needed to tell you. I feel like this is what most of my problems have been. And then she started tearing up and was telling me that she loves me, and she also questioned if like anyone has ever done anything to me to make me feel these things, or she just had a bunch of different concerns, as a mother should, about different things,
And
especially when they're not familiar with what's going on. They just
right.
assume the
And
worst.
she didn't know. Like you did mention that your sisters had gay friends, but
Correct.
your mom didn't have gay
But
friends.
also, my mom didn't have gay friends, but also my mom's perspective on gay people overall didn't end up well either, because my sister's gay friends also died from, or one of them did pass away from HIV, and
Yeah.
which was a really close to my sister. And I remember my sister experiencing it and being sad. I didn't understand it completely, but then as I got older, it clicked with me, and I was like, oh, like she actually experienced this. My sister experienced this. My mom also experienced this, but also doesn't have actual knowledge of like what these feelings are and if they're real or not. Just
Sure.
thinks what happens to gay people are they're gonna end up alone, they're gonna die, and a bunch of different things that aren't also accurate.
And wanted and wants the
Wants what's
best
best
for
for
her son.
exactly.
Yeah.
So now we've passed it. It's I love my mom and I've loved
Yeah.
her at that point too, but it only went uphill from there.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful for it. It did take her a while to adjust because my mom is still very religious and she still goes to church
Yeah.
and she still invites me to church
Yeah.
when I go there.
Yeah.
Love you.
A lot of our parents go through that kind of stuff.
Yes.
It's a topic for another day. When I came out to my parents, when you don't have a gay person in your life, or at least know that you have a gay person in your life, I'm sure most people have had gay people in their lives but didn't know it necessarily. It's just hard to understand.
Yeah.
Um, and that's one thing that I'm really grateful about with representation on TV shows and movies these
Oh
days.
yeah.
That people, even if you don't have a close personal friend, you can watch a show and
Finally,
you can see someone who isn't just Will and Grace,
there's more resources now and
yeah,
outlets, actual representation for LGBT
yeah.
people.
It just makes a really big difference, the exposure, whether it's in person or through
Mhm.
proper media representation. But I'm really glad that your mom came around. I know you are too.
She's
And
the only person that I really came out to. I came out to my I well, I came out to my two best friends in high school my senior year. Other than that, everyone else, I just kind of been living my life. I didn't really feel like the need to come to
sure,
anybody. Once that happened, the only reason I came out to my best friends, I wouldn't have came out to them if I didn't have a boyfriend, but I literally introduced them to my boyfriend. So that was kind of me like being like, hey,
yeah,
other than that, like all the people talking and me figuring out my own, I'm still figuring out my own. Just because I'm dating him doesn't mean like I fully know what's going on at this point. I'm just doing what I feel and
you're just
going
living
from
your
there.
life,
Exactly.
and the people who are important, they'll find out one way or the other.
Exactly.
And
And everyone else can just assume.
yeah, yeah. If only everyone could live with that, because that was not me at that age. I was so consumed with whether people were thinking about, especially at that young age when you're already feeling awkward about your body and everything, and
Yeah.
who you are and where you're going in life, and then to add that on top of this thing that makes you different from most everyone else. It's a real challenge.
I I've always been that way. I've
Ye-
always just been like, and that comes from mostly like not feeling welcomed or loved by anybody, that I kind of have had to just been on my own. And like at that point it's like, who am I doing this for? I'm doing this for myself. If anything is preventing me from living my true life, and anyone who isn't going to support me isn't going to help me, I've been doing that,
Yeah.
like nothing's going to change.
Which is awesome because I've often said to you that I just so admire where you are at 25,
Yeah.
and in the earlier years that I knew you, because I was not there. Like I didn't have
Well,
that
you've helped me a
sense.
lot. That's a part of this. A
Yeah.
part of my growth has been because of you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And vice versa, because it's just it really lifts me up to see people, younger people like you who have found a better place in their lives in the world than I was able to find. So it brings me a lot of joy to see
Yeah.
other people finding their joy and at a
Oh,
younger age.
boy, did I have to go through it to find it. There's more stories in the future. Y'all will get them.
Yeah,
It'll happen.
yeah, I know, I know.
Have we talked about all of our first?
The major first.
Yes.
I think we covered, and I think this was a good start.
Yeah, first podcast in the
Yeah.
books.
We should do it again next week.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's the goal. Some things might happen
Yeah.
there,
No, I
but
think as the marketing professional that
yes,
I
you do
am,
you. You just tell me where to be, sit down, hit
perfect.
play, and I'll go.
Just be pretty and ready to talk.
The first one,
Yeah.
the second one, you gotta catch me.
I've definitely caught you at the wrong time before. So,
If
okay.
I haven't eaten, wrong time.
Yeah. If you
If
haven't smoked.
true. No lies were told.
This was amazing.
Yeah, it was such a good time. I hope to
I
not see you again for another week.
we'll see each other at breakfast in the morning. So you're making eggs and toast, right?
Girl,
Yeah.
toast.
I don't
Anywho,
know. I don't even eat
anywho,
carbs. What am I talking about?
thank y'all for
Yeah.
listening.
Yeah, this has been a great first podcast. Please follow us, comment, send us questions.
Tell us what you want to hear, maybe.
Yeah.
We're all open ears.
Absolutely.
We're just starting. This could go a whole different direction in 20 episodes from now. Who knows?
We'll have fun.
It's a mystery.
Yeah. Oh, ASMR too. Yeah.
Love
Yeah.
you, Daniel.
Love you too.
This was nice. Love y'all, audience.
Yeah.
Happy Pride.
Until next time.
Until next time. Deuce.